You're watching Teng Tools Muscle Garage, the home of New Zealand's toughest muscle cars, hot rods and street machines. Muscle Garage is proudly brought to you by Teng Tools in association with Mount Shop, Maguire's and Renegade. Coming up, he's the fastest Kiwi down a quarter mile, but you may not have heard of him. And parked up out west, Renegade Rod & Customs Queen's birthday breakfast. But it's the team from Renegade getting us underway. This week, they send us north to track down Karl's super smooth HQ Monaro.
The Monaro came about from a childhood dream. My grandfather had a genuine purple GTS. He passed on and the family sold the car as well, so it's sort of been a childhood dream to have one back in the family again. You don't need to change the body style much to make these things look cool and tough. It's just stance, wheels, and put a grumpy engine in them. I like bright colours, so that makes it stand out even more. But basically the huge rear quarters on them, they've got a nice style on the back, they've got a nice front, nice ride height, all that sort of stuff. Yep, that's just what appeals to me.
Karl himself is no stranger to Holden's HQ. He's blown out a previous NZ V8 feature car. So 9 years on, he had a pretty good idea of what he was in for with his second build. Even if that did mean starting with a jigsaw Monaro missing its VIN tag.
The original owner died and his nephew inherited the car and then pulled it apart with the interest of trying to rebuild this thing. It ended up in two parts. The front end chassis was in Whangarei and the body was down in Pocono. So they ended up getting it back together once the guy that I bought it off owned it, and it had blue bonnet, blue boot off another car, had some purple guards off another car. The nose cone was there on the original bit, and then the body and the doors were the other original bit, and it had a 350 running in it. And it did start, but we didn't drive it. We winched it on the trailer and took it home. The body wasn't too bad a shape actually. It was probably more beaten up rather than rust-wise. It's had two front floor pans, two sills, and that's the major rust repairs that were done. And the rest of it was just tightening the panels, heat and shrink, pulling it into shape. We've tried to use original panels where we can. Went through 5-6 guards before I found the two best. We welded in the flutes, the GTS flutes. You know, I like the look of the flutes for a Monaro, so that's why I put them in. And then obviously I had to cut a hole in the bonnet as well. So that was the way we went.
And a stack of K&N filters fills that quite nicely. While an EFI converted Hillborn 8-stack setup might have been the original concept, it was going to be one outside Karl's expertise and budget. So the call was made early to shift that onto a mate. Plan B is what you see here. 4 Weber IDA carbs perched atop a tough stroked 383 cube small block Chev, backed by a beefed up turbo 350 and 10-volt LSD.
So that was just something different. I haven't seen it out on the market a lot, not really on Chevs. You see it a lot on Mustangs and Cobblers. It's loud, it's hot, but yeah, it's pretty enjoyable. I enjoy the torque of it, the noise I enjoy. Yeah, it's got gobs of torque. Being a stroker and with the Webers on it, basically squirting into every port. It's a step above a single carbed small block Chev anyway. I'd say it's almost as good as my blown engine that I had in my ute, definitely.
All detailed and smooth to match the rest of this big coupe, of course. Not even the bits you can't see, like the undercarriage, would escape the treatment. And while Karl had braced himself for the red tape battle of getting the HQ revinned right at the start of the build, the speed bump at the other end was right out of left field.
6-7 years of building it, working with one engineer from photos from the start through to the repairs to the finished example. He saw the car finished. We had to do probably 3 or 4 things to correct for him to be happy to sign the car off from an engineering perspective. Within that 5 days, he had been suspended by NZTA, subject to inspections going back to 15 years. So when I went back for a re-inspection, basically had to take it home and sit down and wait. We got there in the end, but it was pretty stressful just thinking I had a car that was finished and potentially wouldn't be signed off and honoured to be put back on the road. So it was last on the road in 1992. So yeah, we got it back on the road December 2018, and yeah, regoed, warranted, certification. It was a pretty good feeling when we finally did get it signed off here.
This slick Monaro is a real credit to all involved and very much the reward of sticking to a detailed game plan devised on day dot, right down to the smallest of stuff.
Yeah, there's a word that you probably wouldn't want to put on TV for it, I think. Some people have told me I'm a bit like that, but it's cleanliness and attention to detail. So when people know their HQs, they'll see what's been changed on it, like the chassis rails are all smooth, wiper motors deburred. There's just heaps of little factory things that are hidden away out of the engine bay that are gone. I'm all about just clean lines and keeping it clean and pristine. So, you know, better than factory. If you can make it better than factory, it'll stand out, is my opinion. Yeah, and again, it comes back to the plan. If you want to plan to do an undercarriage, you've got to do every item. You can't leave something half-assed to factory, because when everything else is painted and plated, a factory item's just going to look raw. So, yep, it's attention to detail. That's all it is, and it's time. You just got to spend more time.
Right, thanks to the Maguire's crew, we're headed for Parked Up Out West, an annual collaboration between Auckland's Northwest Shopping Centre and hot rod club Renegade Rod and Custom.
This is the 4th year, and it started when this mall was sort of built. I guess they wanted something a little bit different out west, and we were more than happy to sort of jump on board and help them out with organising something that would bring people into the mall. That's really what it was all about initially, and it's just grown ever since. So 4 years later, we're up to, hopefully today, about 500 odd cars, bikes, etc. here today.
When the country treats you to a long weekend, it'd be a bit rude not to make the most of it, and that's exactly what Renegade Rod and Custom have done the last 4 years. While Queen's Birthday weekend's weather might not have always been the kindest to this West Auckland big morning out, that sure wouldn't be a problem in 2019. While the benefits to a shopping centre of encouraging another 500 or so carloads of people to its doorstep might be pretty obvious, it does work both ways. Parked Up Out West showcases the hobby to a large number of shoppers who might not usually care for the sights and sounds of a car show. And hey, the rooftop car park sure doesn't make for a bad backdrop either.
I don't know actually of any other mall that I'm aware of that hosts anything quite like this. For a lot of the West Auckland community, a lot of us are rodders. There's a lot of people that have got hot rods and classics and customs in their garage, and this is just one opportunity to bring them out and show them off.
Like many of these breakfast events that have been gaining traction the last few years, Parked Up Out West isn't strictly a hot rod or muscle car show. There were plenty of them, sure, but for this more general audience, that variety is a big part of the appeal.
Not only classics and modern classics and customs, but anything and everyone in everyone's here that feels that they've got something that is worthy to put on display. It can be something, you know, that's quite modern, or it could be, you know, an old Mazda 323 that's souped up, or a Toyota Hilux. It's open to everybody. So I think that's what draws a lot of the crowd, is the fact that we don't say it's only, you know, this type or American or pre-something. It's open to everyone.
Despite the big turnouts, show hosts Renegade Rod and Custom aren't a huge club. With membership in the mid-30s and relaxed vehicle eligibility, the club puts more of an emphasis on its people and their community, something that seems like a pretty fitting MO for today.
The club has always been, and even before I was a member, have always been focused on doing things within the community and often for charity. And so that's kind of one of our main drives, is throughout the year to do stuff for others. We do one event for ourselves, which is our Anzac Day run, where we sort of make a little bit of money for the club, but most of that's spent going back into the membership and doing events where we can help out a local charity or something like that. So yeah, kind of that's what we're about really, and a lot of people know that, so we're quite active, very social. Cars are a big part of that, but people are the bigger part.
Parked Up Out West will be back, no doubt bigger and better on Queen's Birthday Weekend 2020. See you there.
Amazing results, even at full sight.
You're back with Teng Tools Muscle Garage, proudly brought to you by Teng Tools, in association with Mount Shop, Maguire's and Need a Car. Right, thanks to our mates at Mount Shop, we're off to meet Grant Downing, chassis builder extraordinaire and the fastest Kiwi down the quarter.
Yeah, the first time I saw the posters and read magazines about when the Phoenix and the LA Hooker came to New Zealand, I thought that's the only car I ever want to drive. It's a nitro funny car. They were just so cool. Always been a car guy. My dad was a car guy. When I left school, there was no really cool car jobs around, so I became a boat builder, because in Auckland, that's kind of what you do. Did that and fixed up cars that I was driving, worked on friends' cars, and just started basically from nothing.
So how did this boat-building Kiwi from Auckland become a highly regarded US chassis builder? Well, you can thank wife Lynn for the first step, accepting a job that would see the couple pack their suitcases for California in the early 90s. The plan? A year to test the waters.
I'd never been to America before. And once we got there and met some Kiwis at the Long Beach swap meet, and then saw the racing on TV, and going, this is doable. This is something I could really get into. And I said to the wife, "What do you think? Can we afford it?" She goes, "I guess." So I just rented a shop and started my own business.
Operating Parallax race cars out of Anaheim, Grant's main trade was cages and fabrication on door cars. But it would be his talents in carbon fibre repair that would get him to where he really wanted to be, the nitro funny car pits. And once there, this multi-skilled Kiwi made sure he stayed stuck. But one race day in Sonoma, things would shift up a gear.
I was helping Gary Densham, and he had a full crew, and Del Worsham had two guys that didn't turn up for his crew, so I went down to help out him. They had a problem, they had a fire on the Saturday, so I helped do some body repair, helped them with paint, and they kind of figured out, well, what else can you do? From that race at Sonoma in '97, I was a full-time fly-in crew guy.
Parallax race cars was still in action, however, by this time employing 8 staff. Split between the two, Grant's dream job was now a 7-day gig, but the dream full stop was to be the guy behind the wheel. And for a chassis guy, there was a rather obvious place to start. Del's
family used to build their cars, and then I told them I thought I could build a better chassis. I know it sounds pretty brazen, but and they said, "Oh, well, how about we test your chassis?" I said, "Okay, that'd be awesome." So I built a seat to fit Del, moved the steering to fit Del, and after a couple of runs, it went over 1/10 faster than his car went, and they never gave me the chassis back. They said, "No, we're not getting it back, we're keeping this. If you want one for yourself, build another." So I had to build another chassis for myself.
Grant's second chassis would be the base for a car built on a budget, bartering his labour for components. It was all leading to an obvious conclusion, and a baptism by fire.
Okay, well now I've got it, now I've got to drive it. So my Nitro Funny car was the first race car that I ever drove down a drag strip. Was it my fifth ever run down the track. I went 5'11", 292. And I would have got my license the very next run, but I cracked a main cap on the block and I only had one of anything. So that was it for that.
For that meeting, yes. But Grant was hooked. Once in that hot seat, there would be little chance of prying him out of it. It was the start of a racing career that would span 14 years, collecting one pretty cool title in the process.
Yep, I'm the fastest Kiwi drag racer. Yep, 315 mile an hour. I think I've made 30 plus 300 mile an hour runs, probably 45 plus 4-second passes. I think I'm the only Kiwi that's ever run NHRA professional drag racing in the States. I mean, it's hard for Kiwis to do. It's a long way away. It's very expensive. Our dollar always sucks. You know, I was definitely really lucky to be able to do it.
For a guy who grew up with the posters on the wall, piloting Nitro Funny cars was about as good as it gets. But it's not the drive Grant is best known for. He was the first import driver to clock a 6-second pass, and the first in a non-V8 import to break 200 miles an hour. Call it luck or call it natural talent, starting your drag racing career in a Nitro Funny car isn't what you'd call the norm.
And I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, it's pretty steep learning curve, like vertical, but my wife and I, we talked about it and said, I can only build one car. Like, I can't build this and keep progressing. We can scrimp and save and build one. I said, well, I want a Nitro Funny car, so that's what I'm going to build. And like I said, people looked at me a little bit strange. I don't think you can do that. Well, we did it.
But home is home, and having secured a block of land in the Hawke's Bay some years prior, the plans were always in place to return.
Everybody said to me, man, you lived in LA, there's 23 million people there, you've got plenty of people to choose from to work for. Come back to New Zealand, there's 4 million people here, there's not that many drag strips. And I said to them, I said, well, okay, but I don't always work on drag race cars. Like even in America, I built road race cars, I built a sprint car for a Kiwi guy over there. Hopefully there's a little bit of work to do. I'd already spoken to a couple of people. Tony Marsh wanted a fuel car front half, so I had that one job sorted out. Another customer of mine wanted an engine put in his hot rod, so well, that's another small job. People need the farm equipment fixed. I can fix trailers and tractors. It's like, you know, marching or fighting, it all pays the same, so I don't care what I work on. But it's turned out, since I opened the doors, I've just had a never-ending supply of customers' cars to work on, so I've been very fortunate.
And it's not just that go-fast know-how from plying his trade on the American quarters that Grant has brought home with him.
Unfortunately, in my 20 plus years of racing in America, I saw 3 people die at a drag strip. Safety, unfortunately, for most drag races, I'm sure all races, is second on the list. I've met so many customers that'll spend 20, 50 grand to make their car go faster and not even bat an eyelid. They bring the car to my shop and say, hey, you're going faster now, you've moved up, so now you have to make this change to your car so it'll pass tech. It's going to cost 2 grand. I'm not spending $2,000 on that. I said, you just spent 50 grand on your motor. Yeah, but that's to make it go faster. Helmets, harness devices, they won't update those. NHRA, you've got to basically tell them you can't run unless you buy a new helmet. And it's the same with the chassis. It's just one of those things. And I think the biggest thing I've learned about anything is just how to make it safer.
Grant's current workload is a mix of motorsport and street cars. The 63 Nova is bound for the salt flats of Bonneville, while a couple of drag cars claim their fair share of the shop floor. A happy twist of fate sees the Phoenix, one of the poster cars that lit the fire for Grant, now under his knife. His own project, while having all the symptoms of a full-noise door slammer, is actually destined for the road. Street car clearly means different things to different people. For Grant, apparently a 41 Willys coupe packing 1,200 horses of Lenco-shifted Hemi is just the ticket for a quick strop to the shops.
Yeah, well, if more is good, too much is better. I've been 300 plus mile an hour so many times, and I tried driving a nostalgia car. When I was in America, it just seemed slow. So driving a door car is going to be even slower, so it's just a really cool street car, something that's going to turn heads, it'll show off the quality of work I do, it'll be a good, shop hot rod.
Let's be honest, it's a pretty good fit for New Zealand's fastest drag racer. While Grant's Hawke's Bay home might be a world away from the battlefields of US drag strips, this Kiwi is one who's content to spend a bit more time in the slow lane. Just don't call it retirement.
People say to me, what are you going to do, get back to New Zealand to retire? Well, I think I'll retire when I'm dead, because you've got to have something to look forward to. To me, looking forward to making someone else's car go better, building a new car for someone and making it really trick. Now, I understand that I'm not going to drive again, and I'm happy with that. Like I say, I don't think anyone from New Zealand has done what I've done, so I've got to be pretty lucky about that. But just looking forward to just building some cool cars for people.
Want to win big? Prizes don't get much bigger than this one. A massive Teng Tools 417-piece toolkit, 7-drawer cabinet and 6-drawer top box, a complete Maguire's car care pack and a $500 Mount Shop voucher. What do you need to do to be in to win? Simply head to themotorhood.com and hit the Teng Tools Muscle Garage link. Easy. Teng Tools Muscle Garage was proudly brought to you by Teng Tools. Get organised. Mount Shop, undercar specialists. Maguire's, people who love cars love Maguire's. And Need a Car, the easy way to research and buy cars online.